Imagine this. One morning you wake up, you pour your coffee, you open your newsfeed, and you see this headline. Tyson Foods just shut down one of the largest meatpacking operations in the United States of America. And then about 3 paragraphs down through the article, you realize that they're also cutting production at another massive facility in Texas. Folks, that's not coincidence. And this actually just happened. What you're seeing, folks, is a corporate chokehold on American cattle producers and consumers alike. And what Tyson did isn't just big news. It's a really, really big warning. It's a wake-up call. So let me summarize this for you really quick so you know exactly what I'm talking about. Tyson just made 2 moves that hit the cattle markets like a freight train. The cattle markets and the entire beef industry, consumers at the grocery store. Everybody's been hit by 2 moves by Tyson. In move number 1, they're shutting down their Lexington, Nebraska processing facility. This facility processes over 5,000 head of cattle every single day. Now, they're saying it's only about 4.8% of the U.S. market, but estimates actually range anywhere from 5 to 6%. Some people say 7, but I think that 7% or 7.5% is actually including the reductions that they're doing at their plant in Amarillo, Texas. They're reducing their plant in Amarillo, Texas to a 1 full shift. That means that they're not going to operate multiple shifts. They're reducing the capacity of that plant. Obviously, there's a lot of different types of fallouts from this. In Lexington, Nebraska, for example, over 3,000 people are going to lose their jobs in January. Happy New Year. In Texas, there will also be job losses. But to farmers and ranchers, to the consumer at the grocery store, these are pretty big changes. Luckily for Tyson, it's a very big change. We'll get into the numbers here in a second. What Tyson did was they took a chainsaw to American beef capacity. In a concentrated industry, 5 to 6% of supply, where supply is already tight, consumer demand is rather inelastic. That translates to about a 10 to 20% reduction for the rancher, conservatively 5 to 15%. What I mean by that is that the rancher has less bidders in the market, and so therefore there are less opportunities to sell beef. So they're going to take a shaving of about 10 to 15%, at least regionally. Now, because it's inelastic and because it's a very tight market as it is, the consumer is also going to take a 10 to 20% hit on the upside because the consumer is going to continue to buy beef. And they won't stop buying beef until they hit the next price level where it makes a difference. Some people would say they're trying to make us eat bugs. Eat less meat. Anyway, so as the price goes up 10%, if it hasn't made a difference on consumers, the price will continue to rise until it starts to hit that hitback. Meanwhile, there's a spread in the middle that goes directly into Tyson's pocketbook. That spread could be anywhere from 20% to 40%, depending on where the prices end up dropping for the cattle producers.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, ring the notification bell, and drop a like, please, so YouTube knows we're doing something right. Okay, now today's story. Oh, you might want to buckle up that seatbelt because this one is Chef's Kiss, peak 2025 political irony. Now, MAGA farmers are furious. Yes, furious as Tyson Foods shuts down its plant in Nebraska. The same Nebraska that voted overwhelmingly for Donald J. Trump. And now, well, let's just say the consequences of those economic policies have arrived on their doorstep like a package they forgot they ordered.
Next year, this is all part of an effort there to cut costs.
An unexpected victim of the growing trade war, meat. Billions of pounds of pork, poultry, and beef are piling up in U.S. cold storage warehouses.
Facility opens to boost Tyson Foods' automation and robotics efforts in food production. The Tyson Manufacturing Automation Center officially opened in downtown Springdale today.
A quiet is settling over towns that used to hum with life. In places like Arkansas and Iowa, the rhythm of a community was once set by the shift change at the local plant. But now, that rhythm has been replaced by a deep uncertainty. Tyson Foods, the largest meat packer in the country, is turning out the lights. The parking lots are emptying out for good, and for thousands of people, the foundation of their life has just vanished. This is the fallout of a trade war that was promised to protect the heartland. But the reality playing out on Main Street looks nothing like those promises. We're watching a wave of closures ripple across the country, and it's leaving hollowed-out towns and unanswered questions in its wake. So, what does this so-called optimization really mean for the families who depended on those jobs? And if this is the result of putting America first, who exactly is it putting first? A deep and unsettling quiet is falling over the heart of America. For generations, the lifeblood of countless small towns flowed from the parking lots of meat processing plants, with the shift change whistle dictating the rhythm of daily life. That rhythm has now stopped. In its place is a silence filled with anxiety and the grim reality of economic collapse. This is a direct outcome of political gambits that have backfired on the very people they were designed to protect. The numbers tell a stark story, but they can't capture the full human tragedy unfolding from Arkansas to Iowa. The sheer scale of this retreat is difficult to comprehend. The cold, hard data reveals that Tyson has shuttered more than 10 facilities in a 2-year period, a move that directly eliminated over 5,000 jobs. Each one of those 5,000 is a person, a family, a mortgage, and a future suddenly thrown into uncertainty. The town of Perry, Iowa, population just over 7,000, lost its largest employer in a single day when the pork plant closed, wiping out 1,300 positions with little more than an email for notice. The scenario was even more catastrophic in Knoll, Missouri, a community of only 2,000 people. The closure of the local Tyson poultry plant meant 1,500 people were suddenly without a paycheck, effectively erasing the town's primary reason for existence and plunging it into an economic depression from which it may never recover. These closures stand in direct opposition to the grand political promises made just years prior. The original theory was simple and compelling. Impose heavy tariffs on imported goods, and corporations would have no choice but to reinvest in American soil, building new plants and showering the heartland with high-quality jobs. The reality, however, has been a masterclass in unintended consequences. The implementation of new tariffs on steel, aluminum, and packaging materials sent production costs for a massive integrated company like Tyson into the stratosphere. Every facet of its operation, from the machinery on the factory floor to the fuel in its delivery trucks, became significantly more expensive. Confronted with these crushing new financial pressures, the corporate calculus became brutally simple. Instead of building new facilities, the leadership chose to shutter old ones. The strategy became one of ruthless consolidation, sacrificing communities on the altar of shareholder value and profit margin protection. The human cost of this corporate strategy is written in the empty storefronts and quiet desperation of these abandoned towns. The closure of a plant is never an isolated event. It is a detonation that sends shockwaves through every layer of the local economy. In Dexter, Missouri, the termination of 683 jobs at the poultry plant paralyzed a community of 8,000 people almost instantly. The city administrator described a simultaneous loss of people, revenue, and any sense of hope for the future. The ripple effects were immediate and severe. Local grain farmers lost their primary customer. Contract chicken growers who had invested hundreds of thousands in specialized barns were left with nothing. Family-owned restaurants and a long-standing hardware store closed within months.
Some major news that's going to have a huge impact on the Nebraska community was released today as Tyson Foods announced they're closing their location in Lexington, Nebraska. They process up to 5,000 head of cattle per day and employ more than 3,200 people from Lexington, Nebraska. That's a community of 10,000 people in central Nebraska. Now, this is all coming at a time where packers say their margins are getting smaller and smaller and smaller. In fact, Tyson has reported losing money as part of their beef division for several quarters in a row, as we're the smallest cattle size when it comes to the herd in the U.S. for generations. So what comes next? No one really knows. A lot of questions out there right now. Will Tyson sell this plant? Perhaps somebody could come in there and process these cattle. But again, 5,000 head of cattle processed in Tyson, in Lexington, Nebraska. And they announced they're going to be ceasing operations about mid-January of 2026.
We are here at the FAFO stage. This is really bad. And if you appreciate my content, please engage with this video. I'm just going to read this to you. Multiple Texas farms shut down after almost 100% of workforce vanishes overnight. In a stunningly swift overnight change, some Texas farm operations had to shut down after losing virtually all of their workforce, an exodus triggered by the increase in immigration raids and increased enforcement. The ripple effects of these raids are the gift that keeps on giving and will be felt nationwide. Unpicked crops are now left unharvested. Livestock were left untended, and rural economies are on edge. The story isn't just a tale of woe for Texas farms. It's a warning for American agribusiness, food prices, and communities that keep food on our plates. I need you to share this with every Republican you know. And you don't even need to wait for their response. They just need to know what's happening. And this is...
You see all these farmers on TikTok complaining now about Trump, who voted for Trump? It's funny how people don't care about something until it directly affects them. Countless farmers are on the verge of losing their farms. One guy has a wheat farm. He's already lost $400,000 since Trump's been in office. Another guy has a sweet potato farm, 200 acres. He's already lost $500,000. Farmers in our country are losing their government contracts. The government is reneging on the contracts they already have with these farmers, and these farmers depend on these contracts. The agricultural sector relies on billions of dollars of government assistance for loans, grants, disaster relief, and conservation practices. These programs have been around since FDR. Now, a federal judge already blocked the funding freeze that Trump instilled because it's against the law. But farmers around the country, they're telling us it's all...
Tyson Foods is closing down a major beef processing plant in Lexington, Nebraska. Let's talk about the effects of what this is going to bring. This causes a false sense of supply and demand issue within the area. With a plant that closes that was doing upwards around 5,000 head of cattle a day, those cattle are going to have to go somewhere else, and you can guess who owns the next closest processing plant. You got it right, Tyson Foods. So now that Tyson's other plant is being flooded with beef, they're going to be able to set the price that they're buying these cattle for, screwing over the ranchers and the sellers who are selling them these cattle, because the buyer sets the price, not the seller. So Tyson buys these animals for less. They still have the same amount of demand, so they're going to be charging you, the American consumer, the same price or even higher prices because now they have to process more cattle. Tell me how that works. But this is all part of the game plan that goes unchecked and unchallenged. These people are allowed to do this whenever they want because they control the market. So the rancher makes less, you pay more, Tyson makes billions of dollars. Let me know what you think about this down in the comments below.
Well. So this past Friday, Tyson announced that they were going to be closing a factory in Lexington, Nebraska that employs 3,200 workers. Because I think it's incredibly important to keep track of these things, a reminder that 72% of people in Dawson County, Nebraska voted for Donald Trump, and they voted for this to happen to themselves. And the reality is you probably voted just so that Riley Gaines could feel vindicated for finishing tied for 5th place. Not that we need further proof to explain why Donald Trump's trade and economic policies are disastrous for this country. This is actually real-time results. Starting on November 13th, where Trump announced that he is going to be rolling back tariffs on a wide range of agricultural products, including certain beef items. You can see this on the official whitehouse.gov website. The president has thus determined that certain agricultural products shall no longer be subject to the reciprocal tariffs. I'm sorry, wasn't this the foundation of the entire campaign that he ran on? Beef has its own little bullet point. And Trump justifies this by saying it is a move aimed at easing high prices and meeting domestic demand. Let's put a pin in that. You've got his reciprocal tariffs that are driving up prices for the American consumer, but demand still exists. However, people don't want to pay the higher prices, so he removes the tariffs on the international imports of beef. And what the president is effectively saying when he does this is American products and domestically made things are too expensive. Corporations can't make profits if they rely on domestically produced goods, and Trump loves free trade capitalism, so this is what happens. Senator Deb Fischer of Nebraska says basically, this is awful and will have devastating results. Well, it's a good thing you just raise healthcare premiums for your constituents. Representative Mike Flood says our cattle ranchers are being abandoned. Well, Trump basically said this back in February during his State of the Union address, where he said, Ranchers, farmers, I love you. You're going to go through pain, but it'll be worth it, and I love you. Governor Jim Pollan said there's plenty of opportunities for our cattle rancher farmers. Well, glass half full, I guess. This is a perfect example of how to combat the number one thing that MAGA says when it comes to the tariffs. If tariffs are bad, then why do other countries do it? Tariffs aren't bad. The EU uses tariffs very strategically. They use them, though, to protect their domestic manufacturers and industries. By putting tariffs on beef imports, it actually allows our cattle ranchers and our beef industries to be able to compete with the pricing from the other countries. When you lift the tariffs, then we rely on the foreign imports. The president just traded off our cattle ranchers in Nebraska for Brazil, Canada, Mexico, and you guessed it, Argentina. And so a reminder to 72% of you in Dawson County, you absolutely voted for this.
So Tyson Foods decided to close their beef packing plant here in Nebraska. And it's out in Lexington, Nebraska. And of course, Deb Fisher takes right to Facebook and says things like, oh, I'm so upset at them. I'm going to have to get in touch with them. Really? Come on. So I put in the comments, because I don't normally comment on these, but I felt the need today. And I dropped down in the comments and said, well, so your actions, your policies, and your decisions, which attack their workforce and other things that they rely on, are finally coming home to roost. Do you blame them? And then I asked her, I said, do you think your policies maybe might not be the right path? And, I can't exactly remember the exact wording I did, but it was like basically saying, don't pretend. You're on the wrong path and you're making the wrong decisions, and it's going to bankrupt our state. And if you keep it up, you might be on the attack. Just gonna say, people might be upset at you. I don't live out west, but that's a western Nebraska environment, very rural, very red. And when your policies start negatively impacting those people, by the way, those people are all the Hatter people, I wouldn't want to piss them off. We know what they can do.
Tyson Foods may be the first really big story that comes out of the Trump administration's tariffs. Let me explain. Tyson Foods is America's single largest food producer. When the Trump administration levied tariffs on virtually everything, it was supposed to result in companies wanting to produce more domestically. But Tyson Foods looked at the numbers and decided that it was more profitable to ship still more of their processing and food production overseas. They are shutting down multiple plants and laying off thousands of employees. Tariffs are increasing their feed and machinery costs, and their labor costs also continue to increase as immigration continues to be restricted and a large percentage of their workforce are immigrants. Tyson Foods isn't concerned with the price consumers pay at the supermarket. They are concerned only with their profit margins. Now, you might think to yourself that Tyson is a crappy company and you don't buy their products anyway. Well, I don't like the company much myself, and I'm not impressed with their product, but that doesn't mean their production won't impact both you and I. Even if you never bought a single morsel of Tyson Foods products. Food is a global market, similar to how the oil market is a global market. The United States doesn't import Iranian oil, but when Iranian oil dries up, the price at the pump will go up because it's supplying the global market. This is similar to how Tyson Foods will impact everything. When the price of Tyson chicken goes up, the price of all chicken goes up, even at your local farmer's market. This is how pricing of supply and demand functions. And as I said, even if you don't eat Tyson Foods, tens of million people are reliant upon those cheap groceries, although cheap might not be the right word to be using these days. The price of that rotisserie chicken at the supermarket will increase regardless of whether or not it's a Tyson product, but it probably is. Neither Tyson or this current administration cares if this pushes millions of people one step closer to hunger. It's all about the bottom line. And the bottom line has not, does not, and will never care who starves in order to increase that bottom line. And if any of you are thinking, well, we'll just develop new production, that will take years, even decades to develop. And that development couldn't even possibly begin as our system is currently. Our current system is designed around the monopolization of every industry. We would first need to fundamentally restructure our economy before we could have the thousands or even tens of thousands of small producers required to replace that one corporate giant. That same corporate monster is going to remain the dominant power. You're just going to pay more for its dominance. I'm all personally in favor of breaking up these corporate giants, particularly in our food industries. But to make these needed changes and transitions requires intelligence and planning. It will not come about through the erratic and irrational actions of a psychotic ping pong ball suffering from Tourette's syndrome.
Big news coming out of Nebraska. Tyson Foods is shutting down its beef plant in Lexington. That's about 3,200 jobs in a town of just 11,500 people. Yeah. So that's nearly 1 in 3 residents that work there. Now why? Because American cattle supply has dropped to the lowest level in 75 years. The company says that it's consolidating operations, moving production elsewhere, and even cutting shifts at its Texas plant. Another 1,700 workers will be affected. Now remember, this isn't about one factory. It's about the future of rural America. Lexington economy, ranchers, truckers, and small businesses are all bracing for the fallout. Now tell me, what do you think? Corporate survival move or a devastating blow to working families? Now keep in mind, Lexington, Nebraska voted for Trump 72%. And this is what they get.
So let's get into it. Now, Nebraska has long been a proud agricultural state, a place where farming isn't just a job, it's a tradition, a way of life, practically part of the soul of the land. And for years, many farmers in the state have stood firmly behind Trump, often by enormous margin. Some counties didn't just vote for him, they saluted the ballot while doing it. But now, Tyson Foods, one of the biggest players in American agriculture, is shutting down a major plant in the state. Gone. Finished. Thousands of jobs evaporating in a community that rallies or that relies on the plant for economic survival. And why? Now, because Trump's economic policies, tariffs, and erratic market decisions have made operations increasingly difficult for companies tied to agriculture and food production. But here is the deliciously sarcastic twist. Now, the same people now screaming in pain over these shutdowns are the ones who cheered these policies on just a few years and months ago. And not quietly. Oh, no, they celebrated them as a victory for American workers, right? A blow to globalization and a stance for economic patriotism. Well, how's that working out? Let's talk about the impact. When a plant like Tyson shuts down, it's not just building closure, it's the grocery store losing customers. It's the local schools losing funding as families move away, right? It's farmers suddenly without a major buyer. It's entire communities collapsing like a cat tower someone sneezed on. Now, the ripple effect is enormous, and it can take decades to recover from. Yet somehow, in the middle of all of this, MAGA loyalists are standing around asking, how come this happened to us? Why would Tyson do this? Why is the economy collapsing in farming communities? Well, maybe, and just maybe, when you vote for someone promising to blow things up, it shouldn't be shocking or surprising when things actually get blown up. you don't get to say burn the system and then confused when the smoke starts drifting into your own house, right? Now, let's be clear. Agriculture depends heavily on stable markets, trade agreements, predictable policies, and functioning supply chain. Trump's economic approach has been more like a game of darts played blindfolded. Random tariffs here, sudden bans there, shifting trade rules every couple of months. That's not how you support rural communities. That's how you destabilize them. And Nebraska is paying the price, sadly so. Tyson didn't just wake up one day and decide to close the plant out of boredom. Companies respond to pressure, and the pressure has been building, right? Higher costs, disrupted exports, shrinking profit margin, and a farm economy being squeezed from every direction. Now, when policy environment becomes chaotic, business pull back, they retreat, they shut down. So here we have farmers who voted for economic toughness are now dealing with the economic toughness, just not the kind they expected. Instead of China blowing down and surrender, Nebraska bowing down under financial strain. And the funniest part is that some of these same farmers are now going online saying, this isn't what we voted for. Oh yes, it absolutely is. It is exactly what you voted for. You voted for tariffs, you voted for economic nationalism, you voted for unpredictability and disruption, and now the disruption is disrupting you. But let's not pretend these farmers don't deserve sympathy. Of course, they do. People's lives are being upended, right? And they're tragic. No one wants to see families suffer because of decisions they made far away in Washington. Of course, no. It's quite sad. Now the frustration is real, right? The economic pain is real, and the uncertainty is it's crushing. But at the same time, it's important to talk honestly about how we got here, right? You can't fix a problem if everyone pretend it came out of nowhere. Policies have consequences. Votes have consequences. And ignoring that does nothing but set the stage for the same mistakes to repeat. Right? Oh, so we're clear on that. Now, so Nebraska, what happens next? Will this be a turning point? Will it make people rethink who truly supports rural communities? Or will the blame game or will the blame be placed somewhere else? The blame game, as it always repeats itself, immigrants, Democrats, the weather, the wind, or Mercury being in retrograde. The usual list. Only time will tell. Now, as we wrap up, here's the big question. How many times must communities feel the sting of these economic decisions before the pattern becomes undeniable? When does loyalty become self-harm? And how many more plants, jobs, and futures will be lost before someone finally says, hold on, maybe the problem is the policies we keep supporting? So let's talk about it in the comment section. Do you think Nebraska will rethink its political loyalty? Should businesses like Tyson be blamed, or is the fault squarely on federal economic policies? And most importantly, what does this say about the future of rural America? Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and please subscribe. Also share this video. So I'll see you guys on the next video. And until then, credit belongs to original creators.